Newsflash, your employees are not stupid, even if you think they are. If you're sick of having to micromanage everyone, if you feel like you have to do everything yourself, if you wish that someone else in the company would come up with a great idea and actually execute on that idea without needing constant babysitting, do not fret. In this episode, I'm going to show you 5 actionable ways how you can embolden your employees so that they can create new products, increase sales, and decrease costs without you. So the weight of the world doesn't always have to be on your shoulders. And instead of constantly putting out fires, you can instead focus on seeing around the bend, noticing trends in the market, adding products, building joint ventures. It means freedom, growth, and to be frank, happiness. Imagine that as an entrepreneur, right? And the answer is not incentivize them correctly, nor is it fire everyone and start over with a new hiring system. Those are important sometimes, but we will go over those in different episodes. This episode is assuming you can't pay everyone way more than you currently are, nor are you going to revamp your entire org chart. This is for improving the output of your current team and now. So here are the 5 ways to get your employees to take ownership. 1, give your team the freedom to make decisions within their own area of responsibility. You might think that by micromanaging every single detail, you're optimizing for productivity because everyone else doesn't know what I know. That's the opposite of true. Studies show that micromanaging your team leads to lower job satisfaction, decreased creativity, and increased stress. Eventually, all the babysitting ends up hurting your team's productivity, destroying your culture, and ruining the bottom line. Let's take an example of a virtual assistant. VAs can be a great asset to your company, taking care of the dirty work, providing a high level of support for you, and freeing up your time so that you can focus on the bigger picture. But virtual assistants can only be effective if they're free to make decisions within their own area of responsibility, which is why you, as an owner, should give them enough freedom to choose how to complete their tasks. Set clear guidelines and expectations. If you have an SOP, start them with the SOP. But once they're onboarded, as long as they have clear daily reported KPIs, let them take it from there. How they accomplish the goal is secondary. You choose the KPI. You choose why the KPI is important. You choose how the KPI is reported to you, and you choose who is going to accomplish that KPI. But how they do it, let them decide. If you hired ambitious employees who are able to think critically, their own human nature, which is naturally lazy because we're saving glycogen all the time, will force them to find faster and easier ways, and that's a good thing. And they're in the weeds, by the way, anyway. So the truth is, they probably know better than you how to do it, or at least they should. 2, encourage your team to come up with their own ideas and solutions, meaning stop fixing everything yourself. Unless it's a catastrophic emergency, you have to let them fail. Micro-failing is synonymous with micro-learning, which leads to micro-pivoting, which leads to faster improvement, which leads to you learning faster than your competition, which leads to you having a better product, which also leads to more sales. I know this is difficult, but you seriously have to let people fail. As long as it's not catastrophic to the company, let them fail. Encourage it even. Let them find solutions on their own, because guess what? They're not going to learn if you do everything for them. Do not fish for them. Even if a problem occurs, which will undoubtedly and inevitably happen, welcome to reality, trust that they can come up with a solution on their own, and then give them enough room to do so. Not only does this foster creativity and innovation, but it also taps into hidden talents and skills your team members have that you probably don't know about. Or even better, skills they are capable of building if they were only given the arena to show up in. But if you don't let them intellectually practice, their innovation muscle is going to atrophy. Instead of finding creative solutions, they'll do the opposite. They'll optimize for not getting in trouble, or I don't want to make the boss unhappy, which is a culture of ego and fear. Whereas if you give them autonomy, it will instead build a team of morale and give everyone a sense of ownership in the workplace, which will indefinitely scale your business to no end. Because if you think you know everything, newsflash, you don't. And if you think you can make every decision, newsflash, you can't. Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last can basically be summarized as an example by this idea. Employees want to feel 1, autonomy, and 2, feel like they're a part of a greater mission. Salary is often secondary if you nail autonomy and mission. And God knows, I hope my boss isn't pissed at me company includes neither. The punchline is happy employees are employees that are learning and growing, and they can't learn if you don't teach them and then allow them to fail. Therefore, if you really want to leverage your team, train your team members to solve problems. This is actually the value of the humanity. I studied philosophy in school. What does that have to do with business? Everything, actually, because it taught me how to think. It taught me how to make decisions. It taught me how to get out of my emotions and ego and see things objectively. But not all people are taught the meta soft skills of decision making. You have to therefore teach them how to learn quickly, how to execute without fear, and validate their hypotheses with data. If you do that, you can say things like, find us the best project management software. Give me a report for which one we should use and why, rather than spending a week on demos and with Monday and Airtable and salespeople at ClickUp. And this isn't just my idea. Steve Jobs would often give his team members a difficult problem on purpose, and then he would watch to see how they approached it. If an employee couldn't come up with a good solution, then Jobs would pressure them until they came up with something better and better and better on their own. More often than not, I try to do this with my own team. Whenever they come up upon an obstacle and ask me for advice, I tell them, could you solve this problem for $1 million? And guess what? They could. If you increase the stakes and squeeze the time constraint, all of a sudden, an impossible problem from 5 seconds ago is not only not impossible, but there's all of a sudden a list of 5 potential solutions on your table. Your copywriter says, I can't think of a good headline for this ad. Respond, I'll give you $1 million if you write 20 more variations of a headline in the next 5 minutes, and watch what happens. All of a sudden, their writer's block vanishes. By the way, this begs the question, how do you know when an employee just doesn't have the stuff? Not everyone is made for creativity, by the way. What Steve Jobs looked for was passion and determination. He wanted employees who were passionate about their work and who were determined to find a solution no matter how difficult the problem was. 2 of the very important, if not the most important qualities you should look for in an employee. But here's the most important part. He wasn't afraid to fire anyone who didn't meet those standards. So if you give an employee autonomy, if you train them on how to find solutions, if you incentivize them correctly, and they still melt under pressure, it may be time to find a replacement and put them in a different position. And that's okay. 3, let your employees know that their input is valued and appreciated. One thing a lot of us fail to do in entrepreneurship as leaders is show gratitude and appreciation, which ironically enough is one of the major keys to drive motivation. You more than likely, just like many of us, forget to say thank you, which makes it easy for your employees to feel like their work isn't appreciated. And you may be thinking, is this really that big of a deal? Shouldn't everyone be a professional? A study found that 56% of employees who quit their job leave because they don't feel appreciated. Unless you want to lose your top talent, you have to say thank you. As insignificant as it may sound, you have to recognize good work when it happens. You must communicate with your team and let them know that their work matters on a regular basis. In the 1 Minute Manager, Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson say that you need to give your employees just the right amount of praise. Not too much, not too little, just enough to keep them grinding. It's also important to be specific when praising someone, rather than just giving them a general compliment. Instead of, you're a great employee, you should say, I really appreciate how you handled that customer complaint. Specificity makes people feel valued and appreciated, which in return will make them want to do their best work in the future, which is exactly what you're hoping for. A master's level approach is to praise exactly what you want someone to become an expert at. Each person, if your systems and your KPIs are sound, should be one keystone cog in your business's wheel. So for example, if someone is amazing at speedy customer support chat, but they're still not reaching their potential because they're being distracted by clearing their inbox, precisely praise their chat response time, because that's what you want them to improve. Say the quiet thing out loud. Tell them directly. You could say something like, you're becoming absolutely world-class at chat responses, but you know, you could be even better, right? You're an Olympian already, but if you want to win the gold medal, stop focusing so much on your email and instead focus exactly on your chat. If you say something like this directly, they will do it. 4, delegate tasks and responsibilities as evenly as possible. Unless you're a robot, and you're not, then you can't do all of everything on your own. And even if you can't at scale. So let's be honest and admit that you're not smarter than everyone else. Again, no matter how good you are, you cannot do everything for your business. Neither are you supposed to. As Ryan Holiday literally tattooed on his arm, your ego is your enemy. With that being said, what's the alternative? Well, if you hadn't guessed it already, delegation. Assign your team members tasks based on their abilities and their zone of geniuses, so you can free up yourself to do only what you can do. I was listening to a podcast from Naval Ravikant the other day. He was talking about how you should set a very high, almost unreasonable personal hourly rate for yourself, and that you have to stick to it. In other words, you should always factor your time into every decision. So if you really think about it, how much time is it going to take to write this email or run that errand? If you value yourself, for example, at $1,000 an hour, and it's going to take you an hour to drive across town to do this thing when someone else could do it for you, then you're basically throwing $1,000 in the trash. Instead, ask yourself, is it really worth it to waste your high output hours to solve little problems and handle insignificant issues? Or do you want to instead save them for the big stuff? Statistics show that successful managers delegate over 70% of their time. They do that not only because it's good for them, but because it trains the team members to be self-sufficient without them. If you find it difficult to delegate though, hiring a virtual assistant can be a good step, as it will train you to let go and to trust others to do their part of the work. Let the VA schedule your appointments, manage your social media accounts, or take care of minor problems in the business. Let them take the load off of your shoulders and allow you to focus on other more important tasks of your business. Eventually, you'll learn to assign tasks to others, and your business will run smoothly without you obsessing over every minor detail. It's inevitable. 5, provide employees with the resources they need to do their jobs effectively. How can you start a fire without a spark? You can't. Well, how do you expect your team to be efficient if you don't provide them with the resources that they need? This goes for both physical resources like devices and equipment, cameras, also digital resources like software and AI. But also, let's not forget about training. After all, you can't expect them to do their jobs effectively if they don't know how to do their jobs. And with AI changing everything so quickly, they need to learn. You should also encourage your team to enhance their skills and give them opportunities to expand themselves within the company. If you're worried about the cost of training, by the way, companies that invest in employee training see ROI of $1.30 for every dollar spent. That's because training obviously helps your employees become more productive and more efficient. My team, we often have weekly hands-on trainings with me or one of our executives, especially with copywriting. We share YouTube tutorials and Slack channels, and we have company Audible and Udemy accounts. We created an entire internal training platform called Virtual Courses Now to train our present and future employees. We think of it as an investment. If getting Grammarly as an example for your team will cost $90 per month, even if it's a bit costly for you now, it will 100% make your team more productive and more accurate. If subscribing to Skillshare or Udacity or even Audible will allow them to learn faster and thus become more efficient, that's a win. And sometimes training doesn't even cost any money. All you have to do is put in a little bit of personal time. One-on-one coaching, live editing, which is what I personally do with my writers, team meetings, manager book clubs. All of these are great ways to train your employees and build trust amongst your teams. So in conclusion, a self-sufficient company culture is one in which employees feel empowered to make decisions and solve problems on their own. If you want to create a self-sufficient culture in your company, start by giving your team the freedom to make decisions within their area of responsibility. Don't try to fix everything yourself, and delegate whatever tasks you can to experts. Make sure your employees feel appreciated, and of course, provide them with the resources that they need to create outsized value for your company. And above all, take extreme ownership. Not everyone is a moron, not everyone is stupid. If your team is not winning, it's 100% your fault, which is good news, by the way. It means that you have the power to change it, to improve it. I hope that helped. Thanks for listening. Until next time.